Hello and welcome back to the Auburn University RFID Lab. My name is Justin Patton. I'm the director of the RFID Lab. Welcome to our first update of 2021. So I want to start with just kind of a short recap of what we did in 2020 with the lab. It was an odd year. This is one that will never be repeated. One of the things that is first and foremost is with everybody home for the pandemic, there has been a pretty significant surge in retail, especially with retail inventory accuracy. We've talked about this in the past and we're living it right now. You probably experienced it at home with your own online purchases or buy online pickup purchases and things like that. Essentially what's happening is we're having certain segments of retail that are booming significantly, especially things that have to do with the house and the home, home improvement, electronics, groceries, because people aren't going out to eat as much, so they're buying more and cooking more at home for themselves. Just general household goods, all of those things are at an all-time high. And the purchasing channels have changed significantly. Less trips to the store, more buy online and pick up in store, more curbside pickup and delivery, more home delivery, lots of stuff coming through the mail. What essentially is happening is this is putting more pressure on inventory management and inventory accuracy systems in the retail stores, in the distribution centers, and in the upstream supply chain. There's a lot of disruptions that are happening to the supply chain and in the stores themselves, and inventory accuracy was very important up until this past year. Right now it is beyond critical. It is probably the #1 cause of customer complaint during this time of the pandemic, is with customers placing orders and then they're canceled later because they didn't have their inventory down, or stores not being able to find the inventory that the customer's looking for when they need it. So what that means is that we have seen a huge surge in retailers who are picking up projects. In the past, up until 2020, a lot of that has been very much apparel focused. Mall stores, apparel, and even big box retailers and things like that. We're still seeing some of that, but a lot of the pure play apparel retailers, this has not been the same boom or surges we've seen on some of the non-apparel categories. So the interesting thing is a lot of the momentum that we have had in the past decade with passive UHF item level retail RFID has shifted from apparel to some non-traditional categories. So we've got projects that are popping up now with home goods and home improvement. We got projects that are popping up with tools. We got projects that are popping up with grocery. We got projects that are popping up with electronics, sporting goods. It's a very interesting time right now. So that's a good thing. It's kind of more projects than we've been able to directly handle and manage in the past 6 months. And we've got, now that we're through the holidays, the phone's been ringing off the hook with folks that are getting ready to spool up for this year. So will be a good year for retail. I think that even as the pandemic winds down, a lot of these purchasing behaviors are here to stay. I think now that a lot of people have gotten a good taste of what it's like to do curbside pickup or deliver to your house, the convenience factor of that is something that people are not just going to walk away from. They're not just going to stop shopping online and all go walking back into the stores. So these issues are going to continue to be at the forefront. And again, inventory accuracy is what drives all this, and that's where we thrive. So for retail, very good year. Some of the things that are driving retail and we felt was important to try to highlight was a buy online pickup in store. So we have a paper we just put together. We've released it to the board. We're about to release it to the general public on buy online pickup in store. It's kind of a benchmark or a scorecard that retailers can go through from a consumer's perspective to see how that buy online experience is working. This includes categories like the online experience when the customer is placing the order, everything from what is the level of inventory visibility on the website to how many clicks does it take to complete a transaction, to the actual in-store experience when they come to the pickup. So what are the options at the store? Is it curbside? Do they have to go in? Is it a dedicated location? Is it certain hours? All of those things. And then finally on to the post-purchase of that. So that paper is coming soon, and that paper includes a survey of a few dozen retailers that we've been placing orders with over the past year. And then we've also been breaking out individual reports for specific retailers to kind of highlight how their stores are stacking up against the rest of the industry and their competition. A lot of change happening in that space. So that BOPUS paper is imminent. As soon as I can get everything up on the website and get it released out there and do a paper release, then that'll be in the general public. Another thing that we have released in the past year, we have a paper on the DART project. Again, we just got the intro done from that, and we're about to release that paper. The DART project is the project that's based on quantifying the consumer experience in the retail store. This is not an RFID project. This is more of a, here's how we create a process flow diagram for how a customer can shop any type of retail store. Typically, we pick a retailer that we would want to work with, like a mall store or a big box store. Here are all their options for interacting with the inventory in the store. Here are all their options for purchasing, so that we can follow that consumer through her decision tree from the time she walks in until the time she walks out with item purchases. We pair this with a store layout map. So when we have the consumer process and we have the store layout, we can start tweaking things. We can say, well, we want to increase customer visibility on the store layout. So how can we change the layout? How does that change the corresponding consumer behavior process? How do those things interact? Anytime we layer in new technology to the store or any type of new experience to the store, we can directly see how those will affect that layout and that process, and we can see how it can potentially affect other processes that may not even be in that section. We've struggled with quantifying consumer experience in a store in the past, and I think that we're getting real close to putting together a solid model for being able to do that. So that DART paper release is also imminent. It's ready to go. I just got to get that thing out on the website and get it hosted up. And we're creating some simulation models based on that DART experience so that we can start actually simulating how store changes would affect consumer behavior before we even put them into play. On the upstream supply chain is, we've had a huge focus for the past 2 or 3 years on data exchange through the supply chain. We've talked about it with the Zipper project and the CHIP project and others. Really what it comes down to at the end of the day is we want to help reduce errors and issues caused with claims. That's the #1 source of financial pain that the brands and the retailers have consistently identified. We're working on and have been for the past year with systems to try to understand, it's called an FMEA, it's a failure mode analysis. So essentially it's saying, whenever you do have an issue with a case, with an item that leads to a claim, what is the source of that particular failure? And then for those failures, how do we rank which type of failure is more important for me as a brand? It's not as simple as, yes, if the box is short or the box is long, if there's too few or too many items in that box, that's always bad. Yes, it is, but there's different levels of bad. For example, if you're selling, socks to a retail customer and there's 150 pairs of socks in a box and those things are a few dollars each, if you accidentally ship one too many and put 151 in there, yes, it costs you a couple dollars and that can add up, but in the grand scheme of things, that's not as significant as if you are a luxury handbag manufacturer and each of those handbags is $2,000 or $3,000 and you're supposed to have 3 in a box and you accidentally put 4 in. That's a significantly different, problem, even though it's the same basic thing from a package completion perspective. So we're helping work with some brands to figure out how to rank those failure modes and what's most crucial, so that we can use that to make things more accurate. And there's some work groups that are coming up with GS1 and others we're going to feed that into. But we got a whole paper on that. It's on the data quality. And then there's a lot of advances that are coming on hardware in the DC. We're moving past these antiquated concepts of just here is a conveyor portal, which we've really struggled with those for years, into some more advanced concepts on here's how we can do broad monitoring across a lot of different items coming through a DC to isolate to case and things like that. So a lot of advances. It's been needed. It's coming. It's been a really good 2020 for passive UHF RFID, and we're happy to do it. And then, just kind of internally with the lab, we've had to transition to a virtual board meeting model in this past year. It's gone okay. I feel like I don't really like virtual board meetings because I feel like we lose a lot of the networking capability that we would have in a face-to-face, and that's a big part of what we do at the lab is, getting, 100 people in a room together, especially all the end users and brands, and their side conversations are as valuable as the primary conversations that we have. So we've tried to make the virtual board meetings smooth and streamlined. Nobody likes sitting in all-day Zoom meetings. I don't like giving all-day Zoom meetings, so we're trying to keep them more content-focused. And I think the last few have been really good. Maybe a few hours long. We pushed a lot of content and updates. We heard from a lot of the partners, but we're definitely looking forward to getting back face-to-face and getting things going. And it looks like, I hope, that we're making some progress on that front. I know that different regions of the country have, different plans and schemes for getting back going, but most of the primary lab staff have been vaccinated at this point. The university's been way ahead of a lot of other institutions in terms of getting vaccines available to the staff and the students. They're vaccinating quite a few people now, so it looks like hopefully, at least in our little part of the world, we're going to be kind of coming into a little bit more freedom of association as they get that vaccine program much more broadly available. So more to come on that. I know that when people travel to board meetings, that doesn't necessarily translate to the whole rest of the industry, but I look forward to this year getting back together face to face and getting back to that whole networking capability of the lab, and we're working on other virtual ways to do that as well. Looking forward into 2021, we've had a lot of requests for IoT updates. RFID often is lumped in as an IoT technology, which is fine. There's a lot of different IoT technologies. I think our core focus here is really on inventory accuracy and inventory identification and availability. So I don't care what that technology is, whether it's passive UHF, RFID, HF, Bluetooth, computer vision, it doesn't matter. As long as we can use that to accomplish that mission of serialized identification of all the inventory and a better disposition and location of where it is, then that's a good thing. And I think other people are starting to pick up on that. What we're seeing is programs out there in retail or even in aviation where we're doing serialized inventory and serialized part marking. H&M, just to call them out, they're now doing a serialized barcode checkout in their stores, even with their barcode systems. With RFID systems and others, what we're getting towards is a world in the near future where an item is individually identified, even though it has multiple channels, either through RFID or 2D data matrix or computer vision or barcode or whatever, to be able to achieve or reference that key index of serialized identification for those items. So I think we've talked about this for years, but in practice we haven't really seen it go into play using multiple sensor channels or really fusing together these sensor technologies to do a successful identification of an inventory item. And I hope to see more and more of that in the future. As RFID becomes more plug and play and more commoditized, so it's just we scanning it, we're using it as a way to identify something, that makes it easier and it clears the way for being able to start layering in some of these other IoT technologies to create kind of a super system, if you will, for inventory management and identification. We can do it. All the tools are there. It's just humans by nature tend to be very binary in their thought process of how new technology works. It either has to be RFID, or it has to be computer vision or camera based, or it has to be Bluetooth. We have a hard time mixing technologies whenever we think about new projects, but I think we're getting past that restriction. ARC program's going pretty well. Had a pretty significant uptick in usage there. I won't go down into the individual new specs and things, but there's a lot of new folks coming online. As I mentioned before, we've got some non-apparel categories coming up, which is good. That's going to help feed into that program as well. We had some old categories that we pulled out. We have had a website migration over the break, so we're pretty sure all the links and everything are still good. If anyone has any issues with any old links in existing documents, please reach out to us and we'll make sure we get all those redirects and things in place, but I think we're good there. Also, the supplier validation program, part of the ARC, we just built them a whole new section in the lab. We have more and more folks that are sending in product samples for validation prior to shipping into a store or retailer. Basically, it's essentially a way that they can check to see whether they've done things correctly before they start shipping to the retailers. That's been a popular program. It's very simple. It's very basic. it's just a feel-good check for folks before they start buying things in volume for shipping to store. Pharmacy, Dose ID seems to be going well. We're off to the races there. Pharmacy's definitely on a big upswing right now. Very happy to see that industry going. Very happy and very proud to be part of that Dose ID initiative. I feel like we're really kind of making some progress on that front. That's an industry that is just kind of launching and really has embraced and adopted the technology, and we expect to see more of that going forward. This is just something whose time has come, especially when it comes to hospital pharmacies. Lots of good happening on that front. Stuff's a little bit challenging to tag when you've got a lot of glass vials full of medication, but you know what? It's not impossible. We've tagged difficult things before, so I'm very happy to see that moving forward. We have a fairly significant restructuring program that was part of some of the initial funding that we got from our commercial and aviation partners and our airframe partners. There's a lot happening in the state of Alabama. You probably see this in the news. They're looking at locating Space Command here in Alabama for, I guess, the new military service branch. And then Huntsville is kind of continuing to grow. There's a lot of stuff happening in space on the commercial side as well. So I always say that I'm going to give you another update soon. I really am. We've been doing a lot of interviews. We've been putting quite a bit of stuff together. I have a bigger, larger update that will be imminent, but that's going to be dedicated because I don't want to just tack that on to the end of a weekly update. There's a lot happening on that front across campus. So more to come on that soon. It should be a good year for aviation and aerospace, and you'll hear from that from us directly first. We've got our next board meeting coming up. I know for those of you on the board, you've asked me about this as well. We had hoped that we would be a little bit further down the road in terms of freedom to travel and things last year when we were ambitious in trying to put that meeting in like February and March. Probably the first one's definitely going to have to be virtual, but I'll send you all updates on where we're at with that board meeting. In the meantime, we're doing virtual tours of the lab all the time. We can still do direct tours by request if anyone wants to come in. We're doing some of those as well. And if anybody needs anything else, give us a call. Welcome 2021, y'all. It's going to be a good year, and I'm looking forward to it. So thank you very much, and I'll talk to you again next month.